Okay, so now you've seen how to put um, all of these elements into an electrical plan. I want to show you a better way if you have access to good families. So Slick has bought some good electrical families, and I want to show you how to use those to make this process easier, because you saw in the last video some of the problems we had. For example, to move the lights, you can't move them from the floor plan. So now at this point, if you want to edit stuff, you have to go back to your ceiling plan and you have to move it. So let's say we moved the countertop or we wanted these pendants somewhere else. You're going to have to move them and then come back to your floor plan, and you're going to have to change your wires. So let's move a couple things here. The other thing that's annoying is, you remember we had to turn on and off the backgrounds because things were hosting to the wrong place, and we had to flip. If we want to place lights, you have to go to the ceiling plan. If you want to place the electrical outlets, you're in the electrical plan. So you're bouncing back between plans, which is also frustrating. And you're trying to keep track of what things are hosting to. And all of that is fixed with good families. So I'll show you some examples of that. But see right now, do you see how now our wiring diagram's off? So now, like, you'd think you'd be able to just edit the line, but you can't. It wants to keep rotating. Or in the case of these, you could actually move these a little bit better, but it scales the whole line. So depending on how you're moving your lights, you may have to completely delete your lines. So I'm going to delete these arcs, and to get them hooked, get everything hooked back up, I have to completely redraw my arc lines. Right, I have to do this again, and I have to keep doing it all of these different times. Oops, that's not how it was before. And now the lights are in the way, but you get the idea. So it can be a frustrating process to do it the default way with the Autodesk families. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to completely delete all of these. So also another thing I think I taught you once, but let's use it here. I'm going to mass select everything, and then I'm going to use the filter tool up here. Click filter. And I just want the lights. There's only certain things I want. So I'm going to check none, and I'm going to check all the categories I want to select and delete. So I don't want doors. I do want electrical fixtures. I want to get rid of lighting devices. And that's it. Click OK. So now it's selected all of my outlets and all of my switches, and I'm just going to hit delete. It didn't grab all of my lights because they're technically not in the view. They're in the underlay. So I have to go back to the ceiling plan if I want to get rid of the lights. So I'm just going to mass select. I'm going to hit the filter button, check none, and I'm going to hit lighting fixtures and click OK. And now it's selected all the lighting fixtures. I'm going to delete those. For some reason, it didn't get these ones. So we'll get them one by one and delete. All right, so now let's go back to our electrical plan, and the last thing we need to delete are all these lines. So we'll right click. Actually, we can still mass select again, hit the filter button and check none. And you see how it says lines hidden? So it says they're lines and it tells you what type of lines. We can select all of those and just hit delete. All right, so now we've cleaned it up. Now let's do an easier way. Let's just get rid of let's close our ceiling plan, because all we're going to need to do is be in our electrical plan, which is much nicer. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my view range. Oh, sorry, not my view range, my underlay. And do you remember how we put it as unbounded and it caused a little bit of a graphics issue that I didn't like? See how like some of the lines are solid when they shouldn't be? It causes like conflicts. So we're going to set that back down to roof level. And there, everything looks good again. And because these families are built the way they're built, we're not going to have the same problems that we had in the previous example. The first thing we need to do is load our new electrical families in. So that's what's going to happen. In order to do that, you'll need to download first all of these families that Slick has bought. And you should see a link in the module. And it should take you, to, should take you here to this Google Drive, and you can see there's an electrical folder. You're going to want to simply click here and go download, and then it will zip the files up and download them to your computer. I'll put them on my desktop. So you can see they're here now. I'm going to right click and extract all the files. So that'll unzip the folder. It'll just put it back on my desktop. So now I can see here's my electrical families. So let's go back into Revit and we'll go to the Insert tab. And instead of loading from Autodesk like we're used to, we're going to load the family here. And we'll just go to the desktop and my electrical families here. Let's do outlets first. There's so many different kinds of outlets. I'm just going to grab them all and load them all in at once. Click OK. Now this is going to take a second, so I'm going to pause until it's done loading them all. All right, once those are loaded, let's also load, go back to the load families, and let's grab all of the light fixtures. Again, there's a bunch. You can sit here and pick which ones you want to use and which ones you don't want to. I'm just going to select them all and I'm going to load them, and it's going to take a couple minutes to load them all. So I'm going to pause and wait till they're loaded. Okay, so now we've got our lights and our outlets and our switches have all been loaded of the new better families. All right, it's going to work pretty much like before. It's just there you'll have more settings and opportunities to make changes. The lights look just a little bit better and they'll function better. So if you remember, one of the things we struggled with before was if we made a light switch or an outlet, if we put it too high on the wall, it disappeared. These families won't do that. It doesn't matter what your view range is. It should show the light switches and the outlets. So that's one less thing you don't have to worry about. Let's go to the component command and let's do outlet. Oops, you got to spell it right. Let's do power outlet. Maybe, I can't remember what it's called. Let's start with outlet then. Data outlet. Oh, electrical outlet. So that's what we're looking for. So you're going to look for, if you're like me and loaded them all, you're going to have a lot of families to sort through. We're going to look for the outlet, the electrical outlet that's hosted to the wall. See, so electrical outlet wall, and you'll pick that. And do you see how there's a bunch of types? So this helps you a lot. So with the Autodesk ones, each one of these types of outlets would be a different family, and you have to go load a bunch of families. Here, you don't have to load a bunch of families. Everything you need is all in one family. So we can do the high voltage for the range, and for a washer and dryer, you need a 240 volt outlet. So that's in here. Then there's duplexes. Those are just regular outlets. Your GFCI outlet is here. And then if you want to do outdoor outlets, you need a weatherproof outlet. And then there's even USB outlets so that you can plug in you can charge your phone and everything right in the little USB ports in the outlet. You can look at the other kinds of outlets, but let's just hurry and put in a couple duplexes around the room like we did before. So I'm not going to spend the same amount of time showing you since we've already been through this. It's just to show that they look roughly the same. And then when we go to do GFCI, we can just come here and click that. And again, over here, if you click placement height, we can put these at 4 feet high. And we can put them around the kitchen. You'll also notice they use standardized electrical symbols rather than putting GFCI in text over to the side. It just uses the GFCI symbol. That way you don't muddy up your drawings with text if you don't need to. We'll place these in there. All right, let's do another type. There's something called a dedicated duplex. So in electrical work, appliances typically, like big appliances like the refrigerator, the dishwasher, the garbage disposal, and the range. So here we have a range, and then we also have the hood for the range. those all need what's called a dedicated outlet. So they're the only outlet on the circuit. Whereas in the rest of the house, maybe one whole room, all the outlets in the room are on the same electrical circuit. Appliances or bigger appliances typically need their own dedicated outlet. So that's what this little triangle symbol means, that it's an outlet just specifically for one thing. And with these families, you can select the outlet, and there's something called a label over here. And so you can label it so that the electrician knows what the outlet is for. So you can do an abbreviation like refrigerator, or this one. It might be confusing to someone what that outlet is for. I'm going to temporarily hide the sink because sometimes things get in the way of selecting your outlets. So this is being kind of difficult. So we're going to use the filter command to get that. And then we can label this GD for garbage disposal. And then the same thing you can do over here. And we're going to grab this and we'll label it R for range. And we'll label this one H for hood. There we go. And we'll reset our hidden elements so that they come back. All right, so that's outlets. That's electrical outlets. Now let's do the other outlets. So we'll go to component and let's type in other outlet. And again, you want to pick the one that says wall to let you know it's wall hosted. And now we have all our stuff. We have data and phone, data and TV. Let's do data and TV. So we want to put that in each room and in the living room. And then there's other kinds of outlets if you'd like. You can do a multi-purpose, a phone, a cable run. If you want in-wall speakers, you can do in-wall speakers, like if you were doing a home theater or something. But for now, we'll leave it at that. Okay, so those are the outlets. Now let's do the more difficult stuff. Or at least if you use the Autodesk families, this was more difficult. In this scenario, this is going to be a lot easier. Let's do our pendant lights and our can lights in the kitchen. We'll just do one layout. Go to component. Let's type in can light. Now make sure you're getting the right light. This is the Autodesk one. The one we want, it says light generic recessed can. And you have all these options. Let's do an 8-inch round can. And you can see already it's using industry standard symbols. And so instead of just showing a circle that represents a light, it's using an actual light symbol to show the can light. So let's put those in. And again, notice we're in floor plan and it's hosting them to the ceiling. And if you don't believe me, we can go over here and we can hit the section box and you can see it's put it in the ceiling. You didn't have to tell it what to host to or anything. It already knows you want it on the ceiling. So no problem there. And so we'll copy that over. And also notice that we're in a floor plan and they show up as black instead of half-toned. It's nice and black, just like the rest of the outlets. So graphically, these look much better. And we can also be in the floor plan and look. Now you can move these around, no problem. You don't have to go back to the ceiling plan to try to adjust your lighting layout. Okay, so there are the can lights. Let's put in our pendant lights. We'll go back to component and we'll search for pendant because we loaded in a pendant. Again, you're going to look for light generic pendant and click pendant. And it will bring up the pendant symbol. And we can put those over the bar. And if you want to see what those look like in 3D, we can go to our 3D view. And they look a little bit better than what was there before. Now, again, you can get more families that look much better than this, and you can get different styles, but these families at least look a lot better than those wild ones that come with Autodesk. And again, they function like the other lights. they look nice in floor plan and you can move them around. All right, so we've got our lighting layout for the kitchen. Let's put the switches. So go to component and we'll type in switch. And what you're looking for is electrical outlets. We want the one that says switches wall, and then it says custom. So each switch is now customizable. So it automatically knows you want to host it to a wall. So you'll click there. And then you'll notice if you click on the switch, instead of like picking from the family types and picking dimmable, 3-way, 4-way, single pole, they're all built into the switch. So if you just click the switch over here, you can have up to 6 switches in one spot. So let me show you what I mean. We need to see this in 3D in order to understand. So before, with the default Revit or the default Autodesk families, if you wanted a switch to control the can lights and a switch to control the pendant lights, you would just place 2 different switches. But what that did is it placed 2 identical switches right next to each other. But in real life, that's not how that would look. They would do what's called a 2-gang box, and they'd put 2 switches in the same box, and it would all share a frame. So basically what it looked like before, if you use the Autodesk families, it ends up looking like this, which isn't correct in 3D. So with these custom switches, you can click on the switch and you can come over here and tell it how many switches you want. So in real life, so it'll look like what they would install in real life. And in real life, you can usually go up to 6 switches, and there's up to a 6-gang box. So you can do that here just by changing the number. So we want 2 switches. And then underneath the switches, you can tell it what switch 1 wants to be or what switch 2 is. Let's go back to our electrical plan. And let's make switch 1 by default is a single pole. So let's keep it like that. And switch 2, let's make it a dimmable switch. So you can click this drop down and you can call it a dimmer switch. And then do you see how it adds a little D there to let people know that that's the dimmer switch? So we're gonna make the pendant lights dimmable, and the main lights will go on a normal switch. Okay, so there we go. We've got our switches in, and again, you can do that throughout the entire house. Now what we're gonna do that's different from before is draw the wires. Before we went to the annotation tab and we drew detail lines. But you remember, if you draw detail lines, if you move the lights, you have to redraw the detail lines. So because these families are built correctly, you can actually connect them all together to the switch with something called the wire command. And this is under a tab called Systems. And if you go into the Systems, there's a little icon here called Wire. And if you click that, it brings you into the wire command. So what you're going to do is you're going to hover over the switch that you want to connect it to. So we're going to connect the lights, and you'll get this little icon that's a circle with an X through it. That means you're connecting it to the switch. So then you can start drawing, and you kind of draw the middle point of your arc. So you hit the end point, the middle point, and then the second end point. And again, you'll hover over this light until you get this symbol and click. And you see how it connects it for you to the light? Now all you have to do is quickly connect all your light switches, or all your lights together. So I'm just going to hurry and do this. And then escape. So do you see how fast that was? And the other thing is, now if I move the light, it moves the wires with it. So if I come back in and even if I decide, oh, my switch isn't exactly in the right spot and I want to move it just a little bit, it moves the wires and everything. So you don't have to do a bunch of rework. Let's wire this light now over to here, and like that. So now that wire's connected, and if you want to, you can click on the wire and you can bend it the way you want it to. You can even delete it if you want. So now everything's connected and editing is way easier. The other thing you might notice is my wires are dotted. Your wire probably isn't. So what you'd want to do in order to make your wires dotted like mine is you're going to go to the manage command. If you want them solid, you can keep them solid. There's no problems with keeping them solid, but you might want to change it. So you're going to go to the manage tab and there's something called object styles. You're going to click on that button and it'll open this dialog box and you're going to scroll down to the bottom where it says wires. And you can change, if you come over here, you can change the line weight, you can change the color. So if we didn't want our wires to be black, maybe we want them to be like dark gray so they don't stand out as much, we can do that. And then I can change it. Right now I have it as a really little dash. If I want the dash longer, I could do a 1/16 inch dash. And if you click apply, you can see a preview of what it would look like. Now I like my wires really small dashed. So I'm going to go back to the 1/32 and click apply and click OK. So do you see how they went a little bit gray and dashed? That's how you would control how the wires look. All right, and that's it. Actually, let me point something else out. Something to keep in mind. If you remember when we were putting the outlets on, we chose the outlets that are hosted to the wall. You might come to a point where you want to put outlets on the end of your island because islands by code have to have outlets on them. Let's go to the place component and let's do electrical outlet again. And there are ceiling hosted outlets. So if you were in a movie theater, if you were doing like a home theater and you wanted to put an outlet on the ceiling for the projector or in the garage for the garage door opener, you would use the ceiling hosted. Then there's one that's called floor non-hosted. So if you wanted to put it in the floor, there's also one for the floor that you could do. So if you wanted a floor outlet in the living room, you can use the floor hosted. And then there's one called electrical outlet wall. So it's gonna turn the outlet as if it's on the wall, but it's not hosted to a wall. So it says non-hosted. That's what we would use for the island. So let's do a GFCI wall outlet that's not hosted. So pick that button and you can see it's not trying to snap to the wall. Now you can place it anywhere in the view. And I want to place it, let's place it 2.5 feet above the floor. And we'll just stick it on the end of the island on both sides like that. Now, if I go to my section view here, you can see I've placed it. Oops. Trying to pull the view down a little bit. Now you can see it's placed, and it even looks like a GFCI outlet on either side of the island. And then you can see our other GFCI outlets that are on the walls in our backsplash. And if we go further, we can see our nice double gang switch, and we can see our pendants. And if we go even higher, we can see our recessed cans. All right, so that is the easier way to do an electrical plan, but that's only if you have access to really good families. Okay, good luck, and I'll see you in the next video.